So here's the basic structure. The first lay-in, now I'm coming in and putting the local color in the sky, not changing the value, but just cooling down that warmth that I started with in the sky. And this is wet and wet, so I'm loading my brush, and I'm picking up a little bit of paint from the first layer, but pretty much putting paint on top of that first layer. So what I see with students is they don't load their brushes and they use too much terps. I just use Gamsol to make sure my brushes are clean. I don't use a lot of it. I like my paint to be thick. So I'm struggling with that sky. I want it to be lighter. And what you'll see later on is instead of working more with the sky, I made the mountain or the hill in the back darker. And that made this, here I'm putting in the local color on the hill in the back. I'm making it a little bit darker, and so now the sky is really much lighter. Because the ground sky relationship on a gray day, the sky is usually your lightest light. Unless I would have like a white object in the scene. So as I make changes, I'm making sure that that mountain stays together as a unit and that the foreground trees stay together as units. So as I modify the colors, I don't change that basic relationship that I started off with, that first lay-in. And this sets the stage for the whole painting. So if the lay-in isn't accurate, then you're going to struggle the whole painting. So that's what Hawthorne says, that this first lay-in is the most important to get a strong start. And I leave some white spaces between my colors because it's easier to change a color if they're not butting up against one another. Now, as I develop it, I start filling in all those white spaces. Because I start with a white canvas because, well, this is a gesso board. And a white canvas is because if I had a color underneath, that would affect every color that I put down. So I like to start fresh with a white canvas. And I leave those white spaces that eventually I'm going to cover up as I develop the painting. And you'll see I'm going to put the finished painting at the end of this video. So you'll see how I actually brought it to the studio and finished it and signed it. So now I'm putting a light plane on those middle ground. They're kind of bushes. This is the shadow note because the sun's coming from the left. So everything, even on a gray day, you have a light-dark pattern. It's just not as obvious as like on a sunny day, but it's still there. So these are trees. I started with a magenta. Now I'm putting some local green, cool green into the magenta. There's a light plane on those trees. So this is probably a 45-minute demo, but what I say, it's 45 minutes and 35 years and 45 minutes. It's like playing a musical instrument. You know, the more accomplished you are, you don't even think about what you're doing. You just play. I'm just playing my instrument here. Relating one color note to another color note. And I start with one color and I go to an adjacent color until I cover the whole canvas. Now here I'm adding a cool on top of that warm. And now here I warmed it up just a bit so it comes in front of that cool light plane in the back. Probably added some cool yellow to it, or warm, I'm not sure, some yellow to it. So now you have like aerial perspective, that foreground comes in front of that cool green on the mid-ground. Now I'm adding some brush strokes just to make that foreground a little more interesting. Then that's the background trees. See how cool they are? They're kind of bluish lavender. And there's a tree there. So I'm going to put it in. Then I make sure there's a shadow. Make sure that I have that is casting a shadow. Some cooler grass. The student told me to put the flowers in the foreground. They were kind of purpley. So now I'm going to take this painting to the studio, clean it up, sign it, and then I'll add it to this video at the back of it, the last part. So you can see how I finished this painting.